Part 1. My brother later discovered that it made my life terrible. Discovered he became our son's father and my wife pregnant. Wasn't mine anymore. He is now slithering back after our parents abandoned me behind and denigrated him. Their 2 million legacy allows me to have a younger brother, Caleb, who has detested me all my life. If you are, perhaps it was driven by jealousy. However, you were mistaken. I wasn't the preferred youngster, needed more feeling. Envious of let me provide you with some context. My mother has always lavished my younger brother. The golden child was. Mom, in our household, would cook his food, do his washing, even when he asks me to help. With his homework, I expected to assist simply because he is related, but the same decency never applied to me. I began to embrace it, as I was rather independent. Maybe it was just my mistake in allowing his preferences and needs devoid of reciprocation. He never helped me when I needed it and contacted only to me when he desired something. I was a timid, shy child who enjoyed learning and keeping to myself. While he was our dad's rough and loud, I also usually have a straightforward approach. Therefore, honest rather than sugarcoating events and stating it like this. I think my mother could have evolved some negative impression of myself resulting from my in his early years. Therefore, he was everyone's favorite of our family. I didn't mind, because when we were growing up, the trouble developed when he discovered a way to sort of insult or harass me for being unique. From him, he would parade me for height, or considering that I wore spectacles, he would sleep in my room and attempt to read my diary so he could grumble to me. Then Mom, regarding anything I have produced, I would argue with him and grumble at my parents concerning his invasions of my personal space, but they would mock off, informing me how minor it was. He did more horrible events, including almost breaking my glasses and arranging unpleasant objects in my food. He had even once laid little stones in my breakfast. Fortunately, I came across them before it might have caused dental damage. I reported to my mother, but she dismissed it. Speaking this way, brothers bond. When we would fight Caleb, he would offend me, deliberately paying attention to all my fears. He and I had the same, because he knew I was conscious of it at school. Attacked by some children, he would assist those children instead of helping me. He would accompany them in naming me things like the ugly loser or hairy monkey, and supports the bullies to physically hurt me since, based on, to him, I was simply a significant failure, another. We argued about something I had done recently, unable to recall, although it was most likely something foolish, and at last of the battle, he advised me to finish myself. Other insults I could ignore readily, but one truly hurt, since I was battling my mental health. For a while, I'm doing better today. At that time, I just pulled to learn that my brother wanted me to pass, since Dad was always at work, and Mother seemed not to give much thought. She even chastised me once assertively, stating it was my mistake for bothering and toying about with him. Things grew ever worse there. There was a period he tried to burn my hair during we were shockingly in high school. Mom backed him, adamant he was simply playing someone like that seriously. Thank you. Dad finally sided with me and highlighted that they had some major problems he threatened to bring to light cops on Caleb. This was an opening moment for my brother. Until then, he had never received a census for any of his behavior. Truly surprised me. And my dad kept imparting to him how sufficient was sufficient. And he should have later on started honoring his older sibling. Dad visited my room and spoke with me. I had never imagined my dad would back him, since he constantly told Caleb while he grew up how similar both of them. Was it what Dad informed me accurately? Had calmly waited years for Caleb, growing up hoping he was simply, although still a little child. He was gradually beginning to understand Caleb's was turning into a significant bully upon learning about my dad. Say this. I felt so confirmed that I nearly collapsed in tears and came clean. To my dad, all Caleb had done to me over the years, and even started opening about the school bullying my dad experienced, astounded that I was experiencing so much. He visited the following day and spoke with the central so my bullies could get a warning. Fearing dire repercussions should they later in the evening My dad registered me at our neighborhood gym for MMA, informed me I had to get manly, and in my life, I stand up to bullies. I will acknowledge that a geeky child like me learning to fight must have been. It's hilarious to view, but I like everything I do in my life is concentrated. Anytime I wish to pick up a carving skill, out time for my schooling to enable me to work out every day and attend MMA courses, not to boast, but it entirely changed my. One day, Caleb was living and his body changed. Once more, he has stolen my pocket. The money we used to acquire if we assisted our parents doing housework. And I had been saving my money over some considerable length of time. Caleb had slipped into my room and grabbed. My money caught him when he was almost to pedal off with buddies and firmly instructed him to reimburse me for my expenses. Because though Caleb understood stealing was wrong, laughed and jeered, knowing that all I could rush to Daddy for assistance, I do not know what passed over me, but I gave Caleb. He gave a strong blow to his face and startled and quiet as he dropped back. On the ground, I scooped him up and hauled out of his trouser pocket. My money then collapsed him back onto the floor. Caleb started to weep loudly, like a little one. It was funny to witness a teenage lad wailing on the floor, but coming racing out the door was my mother. Hearing her infant boy assist in his getting upright and find out what had transpired upon her, discovered I had battled beside him, she shocked and then began to chastise me. She informed me that as an older brother, I should teach better. Things Caleb seems to be looking for. Liking to watch me discipline my mother, also grumbled to my father about how I had whirled Caleb up and how I have to be in control. Dad coldly asked both of us to justify ourselves. I told him Caleb had taken the money. Whatever I had saved up after working hard for, and Caleb tried to defend his behavior in terms of wanted the money for a date, and that as I should assist my brother. But Dad told Caleb he was lucky I simply had punched him for stealing my money, since everyone else would have phoned. On him, the cops Caleb's dad kept explaining to him how he could lack the right to claim others' belongings. Caleb disliked it without their permission. That, and began to have a tantrum. Very likely wishing our mother to side with him. But Dad stayed strict when Caleb came to understand that I would not be chastised for striking him. He yelled, "How much did he despise me?" before sprinting back. Entered his room and shut himself in. Caleb kept his. Since that incident, his distance from me, he had at last understood he could not harass me going forward. And although Dad was not encouraging his antics. First, after a long time, I felt though he couldn't, we were equals. Physically harmed me. He would seek to. When he speaks unpleasant things to me, verbally understood our parents would not be around it. Grew worse as he aged. Felt as his anger grew every year. And had a shorter fuse if I got near him to query something. he would ignore me to my face and leave. Of the room, identifying me as a loser or geek under his breath. Should he wish to say something to me, he would only go through. Our mother, who would forward the iMessage, would ask my mother why Caleb couldn't merely chat with him. Should he wish anything, and begged me to be more understanding. I had no idea if this was he going through adolescence and I had to wait it out, or if he really detested me. I used to be able to cope, include the things he would say across the years, until it reached a point where I simply aimed to leave the house to escape. From him, I would go to my mother. Many times, wondering if she could arbitrate a seated discussion for everybody. When we discuss it, she always declined, stating she didn't want to get interested. I even questioned her viewpoint on why did he treat me that way, when she would have, eventually, blow off the query. Disappeared to my desired university since I was a grade assigned to a pupil and even qualified for a scholarship, my dad tossed. A gathering for my mother seemed proud to me. Also of me, Caleb, though, stayed far and detached, scarcely noting my successes that the day I left for university, I combined relief from past mistakes and enthusiasm for the future. Flee the poisonous house surrounding the over the first couple months of university, freeing me delighted with my new friendships classes and began to lead a life different from the oppressive environment. Growing up, I had known the continuous worry over Caleb's verbal assaults lifted and experienced a fresh sense of tranquility. I started courting my wife, Karen. While both of us entered the second year of our university, friend showed us a frat party. We clicked right immediately. From a religious background, with having children not married were a significant no. Still, we learned she was pregnant,